Raise us up. Hey guys, hope you're doing well today. Pardon the mess. Let me change the position because I have the from the I Ching reading yesterday. I am doing my laundry, so my bed is a bit chaotic there. And I'm just gonna come in and we're gonna have a different reading today. Let me just do a sound check as always to make sure things are working. Cool. Thank you. That works perfect. So happy Sunday. I hope you guys are having a great day. Enjoying some time off, relaxing this weekend, find some space for yourself. What is this letter? I don't need that anymore. It's junk mail. So today, guys, we're going to be looking at this book called Nonviolent Communication. I've read it before, and I'd like to raise it again now because, first of all, it's such an excellent book. It has a lot of it's not tactile, operational information and tips. So a lot of skill development can come from this text here. Specifically, I think it's related to, for me personally, the inner teenager, because my inner teenager is quite rebellious, angry, this really to fuck everything up, this really fighting, aggressive, rebellious spirit. And so I'm trying to, not trying to, also pay attention to how we speak, right? I'm not trying to, I am working with my inner teenager to improve his communication, his emotional regulation, so that he can maintain a balance. And this is done by bringing in the inner loving parent, right? And so this is a very important part of the reparenting process. And this book here in specific is not the only one on communication, but it's one of the best books that I've come across so far. And so what is violent communication? This is all just coming from the back. I'm going to read this because I don't think I've read that before. I don't even think you can see it. I mean, you guys can do a screenshot. You can probably find the back page online as well. What is a violent communication? If a violent means acting in ways that result in hurt or harm, then much of how we communicate, judging others, bullying, having racial bias, blaming, finger-pointing, discriminating, speaking without listening, criticizing others or ourselves, name-calling, reacting when angry, using political rhetoric, being defensive, or judging who's good or bad, or what's wrong or right with people could indeed be called violent communication. I think many of us know that's going on quite a lot. So then what is nonviolent communication? The second half, right? What is the nonviolent aspect? Nonviolent communication is the integration of four things. There's a lot more than, the first one is consciousness, a set of principles that support living a life of compassion, collaboration, courage, and authenticity. Number two, language, understanding how words contribute to connection or distance. Number three, communication, knowing how to ask for what we want, how to hear others even in disagreement, and how to move towards solutions that will work for all. And number four is means of influence, sharing power with others rather than using power over others. All of these things are very important. And you see, nonviolent communication serves our desire to do three things: increase our ability to live with choice, meaning, and connection. Number two, connect empathetically with self and others to have more satisfying relationships. And number three, sharing resources so everyone is able to benefit. So this is kind of the opposite of what we're collectively experiencing right now, and hopefully in the direction, I don't even think hopefully, I really know that this is the direction that we're going, right? Because as I mentioned earlier in one of the other reading videos, we're in the midst of shifting. I think it was from the Tao of Physics. We're in the midst of shifting this, how do you describe that? We're in the midst of a shift of an energetic shift in terms of on a universe level, right? So if you are familiar with astrology, for example, even Chinese astrology, so now we're talking about the year of the fire horse. So this year is going to carry a lot of bold action, a lot of rapid change, a lot of intense change. And this is the heat of the moment where we begin to shift into a new collective reality. And so that's why we're noticing so much emotional flares, so much tension, so much conflict, unrest, all of these things. So if you've been feeling a bit overwhelmed, make sure you cut off the news. I've been doing that, and it's been helping a lot because I'm someone who can get addicted. I'm watching all these videos, and I got addicted to these compilation videos. This lady called The Homestead Journey. So I was watching all her videos, and I would do that every night before I go to sleep, and then I can't rest. And so, take some distance and understand what's happening right now on an energetic level, and understand that it's just a process of cleansing and release. It's like the burning of the ashes of the phoenix, right? It's like the phoenix now is on fire, and eventually he's going to rise from the ashes anew. And this kind of living is where we're going to be at when we come back new. So this is why I'm showing you this book, because it's so important to keep your eye on where we're headed collectively, as opposed to being so concerned about all of this other bullshit. And so today we're going to be reading from the chapter. What chapter is this? It's entitled Chapter 3, Observing Without Evaluating. Observing without evaluating. I don't know if you can see that. And so, yeah, let's start with a little bit of a reading. Today, I'm just going to be reading a short section. It's called The Highest Form of Human Intelligence. So this is starting on page 28. The highest form of human intelligence. The Indian philosopher Krishnamurti once wrote that observing without evaluating is the highest form of human intelligence. You guys know I like to take notes. I'm just going to make some little marks here. When I first read this statement, I thought, what nonsense shot through my mind before I even realized that I had just made an evaluation. That can often happen so quickly. Back to the reading. For most of us, it is difficult to make observations, especially of people and their behaviors. They are free of judgment, criticism, or other forms of analysis. I became actually aware of this difficulty while working with an elementary school where the staff and principal had often reported communication difficulties. The district superintendent had requested that I help them resolve the conflict. First, I was to confer with the staff, and then with the staff and the principal together. I opened the meeting by asking the staff, "What is this principal doing that conflicts with your needs?" "He has a big mouth," came the swift response. My question called for an observation, while big mouth gave me information on how this teacher evaluated the principal. It failed to describe what the principal said or did that led to the interpretation that he had a big mouth. When I pointed this out, a second teacher offered, "I know what he means. The principal talks too much." Instead of a clear observation of the principal's behavior, this was also an evaluation of how much the principal talks. The third teacher declared, he thinks only he has anything worth saying." I explained that inferring what another person is thinking is not the same as observing his behavior. Finally, a fourth teacher ventured, "He wants to be the center of attention all the time." After I remarked that this too was an inference of what the other person is wanting, two teachers blurted in unison, "Well, your question is very hard to answer." We subsequently worked together to create a list identifying specific behaviors on part of the principal that bothered them, and made sure that the list was free of evaluations. For example, the principal told stories about his childhood war experiences during faculty meetings, with the results that the meetings sometimes ran 20 minutes over. When I asked whether they had ever communicated their annoyance to the principal, the staff replied they had tried, but only through evaluative comments. They had never made a reference to specific behaviors, such as his storytelling, and they agreed to bring these up when they were all together. Almost as soon as the meeting began, I saw what the staff had been telling me. No matter what was being discussed, the principal would interject. "This reminds me of the time," and then launch into a story about his childhood or war experience. I waited for the staff to voice their discomfort around the principal's behavior. However, instead of nonviolent communication, they applied nonverbal communication. Some rolled their eyes, others yawned pointedly, others stared. One stared at his watch. I endured this painful scenario until I finally asked, "Isn't anyone going to say anything?" An awkward silence ensued. The teacher who had spoken first at our meeting screwed up his courage, looked directly at the principal, and said, "Ed, you have a big mouth." As this story illustrates, it's not always to shed our old habits and master the ability to separate observation from evaluation. Eventually, the teacher succeeded in clarifying for the principal the specific actions that led to their concern. The principal listened earnestly and then pressed, Why didn't why didn't one of you tell me before? He admitted he was aware of his storytelling habit and then began a story pertaining to this habit. How ironic. I interrupted him, observing good naturedly that he was doing it again. We ended our meeting by developing ways for the staff to let the principal know in a gentle way when his stories weren't appreciated. So, um, distinguishing observations from evaluations. So, there's a chart. Um, I might briefly read through this, and or perhaps you can just take a look at it in your own time. I think it's a good to read through. So I will show you this page first. It's a really interesting chart. So this is the first page of the chart. And then we have like the second page here. So there are 7 different scenarios they list for distinguishing observations from evaluations. The following table distinguishes observations that are separate from evaluations from those that have evaluation mixed in. So it's possible you can have a mixed. So in the first column, you have communication, examples of observation with evaluation mixed in, and example of observation separate from evaluation. So they're going to tell you different forms on how to communicate something. The first one, the use of the verb to be without indication that the evaluator takes responsibility for the evaluation. Example of observation with evaluation mixed in. You're too generous. Example of observation separate from evaluation. When I see you give all your lunch money to others, I think you're being too generous. So that's the first one. I don't know, in case you guys want to read that, try to get it so you can read it. It's a really good example. And to be honest with you, this is quite complicated. So especially if you're approaching this for the first time, it takes a lot of time to um, pull apart all of the observations and evaluations to separate them. So don't feel heavy if you don't understand, because this is something that takes a lot of time. And number 2, use verbs with evaluative connotations. Example of observation with evaluation. Doug procrastinates. Observation separated from evaluation. Doug only studies for exams the night before. Number 3, so the communication implication that one's inference about another person's thoughts, feelings, intentions, or desires are the only ones possible. So, if observation with evaluation, she won't get her work in. Observation separate from evaluation. I don't think she'll get her work in. Or she said, I won't get my work in. Number 4, confusion of prediction with certainty. So, the observation where they're mixed. If you don't eat a balanced meal, your health will be impaired. And then separating the observation and evaluation. If you don't eat a balanced meal, I fear your health will be impaired. See, it's such a small distinction. So it takes a lot of time to first understand and then to begin integrating that. So be patient with yourself. Give yourself some grace. You can already give yourself a pat on the back for reading, listening to this book, because that already is more than most people are doing. So yes, it takes a lot of work to learn these skills, but it's something that you can congratulate yourself already for, not that you've accomplished it or achieved it, but that you're taking the steps that many people are not willing to even take. So number 5, the communication is failure to be specific about referent. The observation and evaluation mixed is immigrants don't take care of their property. Separating the evaluation and observation. I have not seen the immigrant family living at 1679 Rose shovel the snow on their sidewalk. So it's getting more specific, it seems. And this one seems a bit more clear because it's direct. And the first is like a global understanding. So we're in the last one right there. Ooh. Yeah, there you go. I don't know if you can even read that. So yeah, anyways, the next one that I only have 2 more, and then we'll close it out for today. The communication is use words of denoting ability without indicating an evaluation is being made. So when observation and evaluation are together, Hank Smith is a poor soccer player. Separating evaluation and observation, Hank Smith has not scored a goal in 20 games. Number 7, use of adverbs and adjectives in ways that do not indicate evaluation is being made. So again, together, observation and evaluation. Jim is ugly. Separating observation and evaluation, Jim's looks don't appeal to me. Note the words always, never, ever, whenever, etc. express observations when used in the following ways. So, first, whenever I have observed Jack on the phone, he has spoken for at least 30 minutes. Or next, I cannot recall you were ever writing to me. So, these are more, overall, they're more total, complete. What is the word? Guys, I study way too many languages. I forget sometimes English. um, um Comprehensive, right? So it's kind of like a comprehensive statement that you say about all people, kind of like a stereotype, um like all Mexicans eat tacos, for example. I mean, maybe they do because it's such an important food, but that's still like a generalization. So that can also let you know that you're heading in the wrong direction. And continuing with the reading, sometimes such words are used as exaggerations, in which case observation and evaluations are being mixed. So the first example, you are always busy. Next, she is never there when she's needed. When these words are used in exaggeration, they often provoke defensiveness rather than compassion. That is very, very, very true. That's why this all matters, because the way that you communicate and how that's perceived by the other person is going to is not defined, but it's going to inspire their response. So it's kind of like the way you behave, carry yourself, dress, speak is going to cause the world to respond to you in a different way. On a different level, the thoughts that you have about yourself, the world, other people, those thoughts that you entertain consistently on a repetitive basis, that energy is projecting outwards, even though you don't say anything. So if you are continually walking around in your mind with negative thoughts, assumptions, expectations of other people can feel that, even though you don't say it. Now, this is when we talk about the biofrequency, the frequency from the heart, the force field that they say is like 3 meters and probably larger from our body, an actual electronic field that they can capture with computers. So this is not some woo-woo, imaginary stuff. This is actual scientifically proven, so they can actually measure your heart field, your electromagnetic wave. This is not an exaggeration. This is something that is already has already been proved. And so that's again why it's so important to raise your vibration. So maybe you would think, what the fuck do you mean raise your vibration? Like, what are you guys talking about raising your vibration? This is literally what they mean. This is like the mechanism of the law of attraction, right? So you have to think correctly, which is why I share the information from Brian Withers and Revite, because they are two of the people who I found at this moment. There are, of course, many others, but I really identify with them and I really enjoy their work. And it speaks to me in a way that's clear, direct, succinct, and allows me to make progress. And so that's why I share it with you guys. And again, when they're talking about raising your vibration, they're talking about this electro bioenergetic field that does exist. So Rev Ike didn't know about this, because he was speaking, I think in the 60s, 70s, 70s or something, maybe 80s. But Brian Withers, he's a little bit older. So now, in the time of his work, people already know that this bioenergetic field exists in the world, right? And so, again, as we discussed in the Tower of Physics, our understanding of the physical world with science is now matching up with our understanding of mysticism. I was listening to a lecture today that really had me shook, and I'm going to have to go down this rabbit hole a bit. But they were saying that Jesus captured all of these different knowledge because there is like apparently there's a lack of knowledge or evidence of Jesus' life between, I think they said 13 and 30 or something like that. He kind of just disappears and they don't have much references on his life. And ironically, there is bits and pieces of historical artifacts and evidence that Jesus was in Egypt working with the Hermetical principles from the Kabbalion, okay, which I showed you earlier, okay? There's also text that say in India, for example, that he was literally in India, learning in India and in China, in many other places. So also in, I guess, Iran, where did the Zoroastrianism, where did that start from? I guess, like, so basically Jesus was going all around the world. I don't know how he was going that far way back then with no boats or airplanes, but apparently he found a way. And that's how all this knowledge is coming together in the Bible. That's why the Bible has so many books. Literally, because all of this information Jesus was putting together, and finding the synthesis. If you're familiar with Baha'i, they say that, there's one God, and all of these different religions are just different ways in which the same God communicate to different people. It's kind of like we all have different languages, right? But we're just communicating. But we have different languages communicate for different people, but the same goal is communication, to share ideas from one to another person. So that's the thing that stays the same, but we have different languages to do it. And religion is the same, right? God exists, energy exists, if you don't want to use the word God. And then we have different ways to understand that energy, right? I mean, I understood that when I was like a kid. So I really don't understand why people are so like, why people have like struggle. Of course I do now, because like it gets into political and power, and that's why organized religion is kind of ridiculous. But for me, it was so intuitive to realize that, yeah, it's just one God, and people have different religions to connect to the same God in the same way. So I still get kind of frustrated when people don't really understand it, because for me, it's just so intuitive. And that simple acceptance would just allow us all to just relax, like we can actually come together, live in a more peaceful, harmonious way. We don't need to, um, be so tribal, in our understanding of how to connect to God in peace. Like what, like this is ridiculous. The whole point is unity, that we are one, that we speak different languages. Of course, that doesn't mean, that we are like that fundamentally different. It's just a different manner of communicating between people. I speak French, I speak Dutch, I speak Spanish. So, I can go to these places where these languages are spoken, and I can connect with those people, you know? And if I didn't speak those languages, then I could go to those places, but I wouldn't be able to connect with those people. I wouldn't be able to understand them. And the same thing is for religion. Each religion is just a different way to connect to the same energy. And we are stuck on some 3D plane fighting about, which book is right. It's ridiculous. So, that's where we're heading, guys. It's a good sign. It's a good sign. We're headed in the right direction. Um, this is the end of this chapter. So the summary, the first component of MBC entails the separation of observation from evaluation. When we combine observation with evaluation, others are apt to hear criticism and resist what we are saying. The NVC, or nonviolent communication, is a process language, and that discourages static generalizations. Instead, observations are to be made specific, are be made tongue twister, guys. Instead, observations are to be made specific to time and context. For example, Hank Smith has not scored a goal in 20 games, rather than Hank Smith is a poor soccer player. So again, thanks so much, guys, for being here. This is gonna be the reading for today. There are plenty of exercises if you do pick up the book, book or ebook. You can also find the ebook, but there are plenty of exercises if you'd like to dive deeper into this concept and begin working on separating your observations from your evaluations, which is personally something I need to work on. I realized that within the past few days. And it helps you to regulate and calm your nervous system, so you're not so caught up in fight or flight, over analyzing, catastrophizing. That's why this is important, because even the way you're speaking to yourself, if you use NBC with yourself, you will naturally feel calmer, because you will be less likely to fall into cognitive distortions or faulty thinking, or getting caught up with that inner critical parent, for example. And so that's why it matters not only how you're talking to other people, but also how you're talking to yourself. And so this is the most important thing that I wanted to express in this short reading today: the highest form of human intelligence, the capacity to separate observation from evaluation. So thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will see you guys later. Take care.